This short presentation will provide you with advice on how to tackle the forthcoming formative assessment. Firstly, I think it's worth looking at why you were given a report to write. I then want to talk through the specifics of the question, the choices you'll have to make, and the details of the formative submission. This is a new form of assessment for many of you, and that can cause anxiety. But remember that this entire university thing was new to you not that long ago. Last year, the thought of writing an essay may have filled you with dread, but now seems a reasonably familiar process. So a lot of it is simply not letting your nerves get the better of you and taking the time and practice to develop this new skill. A report is not all that different to what you've produced before. I'll talk about the features of reports and the kind of language you will use in another podcast. But for now, it's worth noting that this isn't like beginning again. I think you've been asked to do a report so that you can become used to writing in different forms, for different people and with slightly different features and structures. This is an important part of nursing. How you write up case notes will differ substantially from how you write a care plan or an advice sheet for a local GP's practice. Reports are also a really good way to get you to focus on the audience. Essays can seem a bit meaningless, and you can only ever imagine the marker reading them. With a report, you are conducting all of your research and examining the evidence with a particular goal in mind, so that you can write it up to inform and often persuade a specific group of people. So bear in mind who this report is for. Think of yourself as a registered healthcare professional writing to educate and influence colleagues and NHS and government decision makers. Before you begin thinking too much about the formative assessment, it's really important you understand the overall assessment guidelines. In other words, do you know what you're being asked to do? Spend some time analysing the question. Most questions are made up of several parts. The direction words tell you what you're supposed to do. Write, discuss, evaluate, for example. The topic words gives you the overall subject, and the limiting words give you the specific angle you are to take. So I would say the direction words are to write a report. There are two overall topics, health and well-being and access to services, and you are limited to the specific client group of your choice. I find it easiest to give myself a complete question or aim. Having made a choice of client group, it's fairly straightforward writing it all out in full. Now I have an aim, I can keep it in front of me whilst reading, planning and writing. It'll keep me focused and on topic. Again, try to picture who the report is for. I find this really helps when writing anything. Some people don't see the point in putting in effort for a piece of work that doesn't have any marks attached to it. That's really missing out on a great opportunity for feedback though. If you provide a detailed impression of what you intend your final submission to look like, the markers will be able to let you know if you've understood the assessment correctly, if your choices are appropriate and manageable, if your literature is credible and so on. Think how much that kind of information will improve your eventual report. So my advice is to hand in something that is as detailed as possible. You obviously won't have completed your reading and things may change as you progress on the module, but it's worth taking the formative seriously. You're given fairly specific guidelines on the format of the submission in your module handbook. In around 750 words, you're asked to identify a title. As I discussed earlier, it's useful to have a working title or question around you, so formulating a realistic one now will definitely help. You're also asked to not only identify, but provide a rationale for your chosen client group. Remember that you need to justify your choice. Are this particular group prone to exclusion? Why? What evidence is there? Does this have a known impact on their health and well-being, for example? You're also asked to identify the key issues you hope to address in your full report. What are the probable sections within it? What topics are you going to cover, and in what way? There's no point in just writing down 3 or 4 subtopics without explaining how you plan to cover them. Remember, this is an opportunity to seek the advice of your tutors, so be as clear as you can be about your intentions. Finally, you're asked to detail the resources you've found that will play a key part in the report. Again, this is your chance to gain feedback on the credibility and appropriateness of your references. So what evidence will you use? What will inform your report? This will likely be a mixture of research papers, government reports, policies, guidelines, websites and so on. Your biggest decision at this stage is the client group. Be strategic. You need to have plenty of issues to discuss and lots of resources to access, but it has to be manageable. If you find that your group is too big, can you narrow it somehow? Maybe think about characteristics such as gender or age. Remember that although you're focusing on a particular group, the report is also about the nurse's role, so make sure there's plenty to discuss there too.